Greetings all and welcome to Dave's Craft Room. I'm Dave, and on today's video, I wish to announce a new series. I had an idea for a series where I'm gonna take random people's UFOs from eBay and I'm gonna finish them and I'm gonna Davetize them. I don't know where I got this idea. I guess I probably saw like orphan blocks and stuff like that on eBay. I have orphan blocks here and I have some like unfinished quilt tops. I'm not going to show you everything right now because you have to stay tuned. I'm thinking like maybe 3 or so videos. I have 3 ideas right now. These are projects that have not been finished. It's possible that the person who started them passed away. I don't really feel bad about cutting the things up at all because nobody is loving them now. You know what I mean? They're probably just trying to declutter and they're probably been separated from anyone that would have any sentimental attachment to it. So why not do something with it? And I have the first one here. You know, I don't want to like insult anyone, but this person really struggled, whoever made this. I got this quilt top on eBay, and you know what's interesting is it was sold as unfinished quilt top. The listing didn't say anything about how flat it was, but I did picture a flat quilt top. This quilt top does not lay flat at all. And it's not just a little bit off, it's actually very, very off. I think this is like some type of double knit that came from clothing. This looks like clothing from the olden days and it's all stretchy. You can see it kind of curve here. This whole edge actually curves. So I suspect that when the person sewed it, they were inadvertently letting it stretch and they were sewing on a little bit, like they were stretching it a little bit with every row that they sewed on to the point where now this whole row is so curved. And then this row over here, this side is straight. So that's why the whole thing curves. I'll show you it on the design wall if I can even hang it up. It's about this wide. I mean, I don't know how wide that is. That's probably about 1.5 yards. And then very, very long. And obviously, in my opinion, whoever started to make this, they started and then they realized that it wasn't laying flat and that it would take way too much time to fix that. And that's probably why they quit and gave up. We can see here on the back that it is hand sewn. See the hand stitches there? And that definitely kind of gives me a little bit of pause, the idea of cutting it up or taking it apart, just because I somehow don't want to undo all this person's stitches, but we will cut it up anyway. Yeah, I can't really even hang it up properly. So flat does it not lay. This is the side that's kind of flattish starting initially, and then this is the side that gets so much more gathery because of the stretchiness of the fabric. Cool, so what am I gonna do with it? We've already established that it doesn't lay flat. First of all, I need to iron it to get it, the individual seams to lay as flat as possible. And then what I'm gonna do is, you know, even though the whole thing doesn't lay flat, individual sections, if I just take a small chunk, will lay flat. So I'm gonna make tiles, okay? I'm gonna cut tiles out of it and then I'm gonna sew the tiles back up. That should work as far as making it lay flat. And then I'm gonna try to come up with some ideas to embellish it to make it more Davidized. So let's get into it. You know what, with these hand stitching like this, I'm pretty sure that as soon as I cut it, it's gonna start to unravel. And that's gonna suck for me to deal with. The only way to avoid that, well, there's probably multiple ways to avoid it, but it's gonna take too long for me to do. I don't wanna stay stitch it. You could stay stitch it. I don't wanna stay stitch it. So I'm just gonna see. I'm gonna try to figure stuff out as I go along. All right, let's go. Let's get into it. I think I'm gonna start ironing it from the back. I just want the seams all to go in one direction. I don't care which direction. This fabric doesn't want to be ironed. I don't know if I could do this. Yeah, you know what? The ironing is just not gonna work. You know what we should do? I think we're gonna need to call good old Mom.
Hello.
Mom,
What?
this is what I have in front of me right now. First of all, do you know what kind of material this is? Wait a minute, hold on.
Is it a double knit?
I think so.
It looks like double knit from here, but it's hard to, yeah, that's definitely double knit.
Well, what is double knit?
Just polyester stretchy material.
It's horrible.
It is. Quite.
Is
My
this
grandma
what people used to wear clothing made out of?
Yeah.
The issue is that it doesn't, how do you iron it flat?
No, you don't iron it. You can top stitch it if you want to.
What do you mean you don't iron it?
Well, you really can't iron it, it just won't go flat. It doesn't take an iron.
It doesn't take
That's why
an
people
iron.
liked it, because they never had to iron it. You know why it's like somebody's UFO.
Well, that's not the only reason why, because I think they stretched each strip a little bit more.
Oh, maybe when they were sewing it.
And now it's short on one side and gathery on the other side, and it does not lay flat at all.
You can top stitch the seams down.
That's as much sewing as doing the whole quilt.
Yeah, it is.
But also, it's hand sewn, which means when I cut the tiles out, the seams will probably come apart when I cut them.
Yeah, they'll probably go.
Why did I have this idea?
Well, I hope you didn't pay very much money for it, because I wouldn't pay 10 cents for it.
All right, so good old mom came through with the advice. She told me that the thing to do would be to top stitch the seam down. So I'm gonna top stitch it. I think I can do it in I don't know, like an hour or something. I'm just gonna go the one way. I'm not gonna do every single seam. I'm just gonna do the vertical. I'm just gonna do the vertical seams, and that's it. So let's do it. Yeah, so I'm just top stitching it down, just right inside the seam. You know, like 1/8 of an inch inside the seam, and it's actually working. This is working pretty good. And it's gonna make it lay flat, and it's also gonna help me prevent the unraveling of the hand stitches. So although this is going to be tedious, I think that it is actually the best solution for me. So here I go. Yeah, it's actually really good. I mean, it's not good. It's a horrible thing to do, but it's laying flat. Alright, so the top stitching on all the seams is done, and it's like flatter in one way, but kind of more puckery in a different way. But either way, I'm gonna continue and see what happens when I cut out my tiles. Okay, work. So there's one of the tiles, and that's really the next task now, is to cut out 100 of these, or see how many of these I can get out of this. And then we're gonna sew them back up into hopefully a flat quilt or something. And if it doesn't quite reach, like make a rectangle, then I'll figure something else out at that point. And I also realized that since I had to top stitch down the seams originally, now whenever I sew it together, I'm gonna have to top stitch those seams down too. So that's cute. the tea about there being one block left. I want to do more things. So I'm gonna spread it out. Oh, there's another one. I didn't see this one. Alright, I'm gonna look around my craft room for like random stuff that I can fill into here. I think I'm gonna use these. It's all the colorful fabrics that I'm selecting are clashing. I'm gonna use these non-colorful ones. I'll show you them up close. This is like piano, and these are stash. I think it's gonna be a vibe. I just do. Let's try it. Okay, I do suspect at this point the people of the internet may be questioning what's going on here because it doesn't necessarily look good, but what you have to understand is I have a vision and I'm going for something here and I think I can achieve it. And I think it's gonna work out. Let me sew it up. I realized that this project was a good chance to do a Chris O'Neill style lessons from an old quilt. And if you don't know, Chris O'Neill has a series where she looks at old quilts and considers lessons that we can learn from them. So this time, we're going to take lessons from an old UFO fail and try to figure out how we can avoid these problems. The main issue here is really that with each successive row that they sewed on, they stretched the fabric a tiny bit, and that small bit of stretching snowballed into a big problem in the end. The person probably should have measured the rows against the same reference each time, rather than what I suspect they did, which was measure the next row against the previous row that they just sewed on. And granted, these are stretchy, so that makes it harder to measure accurately, but if you use the same reference length each time, like for example 70 inches on the measuring tape, you're going to be closer to accurate. With stretchy fabric, you may measure it and see 70 inches when it's really like 68 or 72 inches, but by using the same reference every time, I still think it will even out in the end and lay a lot more flat. I think this person ended up making strips that were maybe 70 inches and then 71 and a half inches and then 73 inches and then 75, and pretty soon they were like 90 inches and now you're way off. So even if the materials make it difficult to be perfectly accurate, you can compensate by always using the same references to measure them. All right, so I've now pulled some things to do some applique embellishments. This is the t-shirt that I bought in Thailand, actually when I was there with Gregory last year. And you can see kind of the street market we went to in the EPP video. I bought this t-shirt. I'm gonna have this little astronaut in there, and then I also have this panel that says "Stay Wild." And then lastly, oh my gosh, I could not believe it. This is the brown fabric from from the crop circle quilt. These are the letters from the 100 Days, 100 Quilt Box quilt, 17 Standard Devereaux, Dupree, New Mexico, 6000 Junior, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th goes west. So I'm going to think of some like deep and meaningful quote to put on there. and applique letters on. I don't know what it's going to say yet, but I'll figure it out. So I'm going to prepare these and applique them on with Flexi Fuse and do that. So here I go. And then to cope with the stretchiness, we definitely need to use pins. And you might be thinking, Dave, aren't you a hypocrite? Didn't you just say in a previous video that you don't need pins unless there's an earthquake? Well, it's true I don't use pins a lot of the time because it slows me down, but I do use them when I need them. And a time when I would use pins is at the point when I'm sewing the rows of the quilt together. And there's usually landmarks along the way where, for example, the blocks need to line up, like the seams need to nest in order to make the grid, and that's where I would put the pins to make sure those landmarks stay together. Otherwise, the pieces will stretch. Even if you measured the rows and they're all exactly the same length, by the time you manipulate them into the sewing machine, they'll get stretched, and the two pieces you're sewing together will not stretch exactly evenly. So that's why we need pins at that point. And maybe I will get lazy sometimes and I don't always feel like pinning, but even then, whether I pin or not, the key word is that the landmarks have to line up. So the seams that need to nest need to line up. Whether you use pins or clips or just your hands and eyes, as long as the landmarks line up, you'll be just fine. Oh my gosh, this is perfect. Oh, I need a question mark. Do you believe in milk and cookies? It means nothing. I'm gonna applique it on raw edge. This was kind of a crazy quilt, so there wouldn't really be landmarks in that case. So what I would have done is lay it out flat on the floor or on a large table so that it's not being stretched. It's completely neutral. And then placed my next row that's been measured using the same reference as all the other rows, lay it face down on the project where I need to sew it and make sure everything is completely neutral the best I can, and then pin the crap out of it, like literally 100 pins, and then sew it together. That's all hypothetically what I would do. Realistically, I have no desire ever to work with double knit ever again, just because it is not easy to work with. It's too thick and bulky, and you can't iron it, meaning I would not want to interface it either, because that would just make it even more bulky and even less likely to lay flat. So the solution for me is probably to just not work with double knit again, but I did enjoy the challenge of this project and the chance to come up with some way to salvage it. Alright, here is the final result, although it was a very trying journey, but I love the art I was able to create, and it also feels good to take someone's unfinished project and finish it. So that's all for today's video. Remember to like and subscribe to my channel, and please come again.